Croeso bore da, croeso i'r cyfarfod. Good morning and welcome everybody to this Education and Commissioning and Quality Committee for July. It's lovely to see so many people here and to welcome those of you who are joining us online. I've got quite a few welcomes and introductions to do this morning. Welcome to our Chair, Chris Jones, who's joining in for this meeting. And I'm delighted that we have two of our new independent members joining, Judith Hardesty and Dawn Jones. I'd also like to welcome Ian Matheson, who is the new Director of Education Strategy and Transformation. I think we've got Sian Richards here, who is presenting one of the items later on the agenda. And it's lovely to see Melton Arikam, who's joining us online. So welcome, everybody. I'd also like to take this opportunity to just thank John Garman, one of our independent members who has now stood down from this committee for all the work and for all his commitment to this committee previously. In terms of apologies for absence, we've got apologies from Tom Lawson, our Medical Director, but Anton is here to support us on those items this morning. We are quorate, and I've just asked now if there are any declarations of interest for any items on the agenda this morning. No? None received. Thank you. Okay, so if we can then look at the minutes of the meeting held in March. If we can do them for accuracy first, so that's just to open them. Okay, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. If there aren't any comments, thank you. And if we therefore can move on to the action log, which I know, David, you'd like me to open. Okay.
My computers
the computers don't want to play properly this morning, don't we? David, are there any particular things you want to highlight to us?
So, just to draw to users' attention to an update on the apprentice mapping exercise.
Yes. So, bore da pawb actually, and thank you actually for this. In terms of actually this particular action, obviously the membership actually will understand that there is a change actually happening actually in terms of we're now actually moving away from what we call the HEFCO, the Higher Education Funding Council for Wales, to actually what we call CETA, which is the Tertiary Education actually sort of Commission. And that is now actually coming into being as we speak, actually during sort of August, September. They've actually been formulating, actually sort of informing and storming during the course of the last year. They will be known as MEDR actually in Welsh. And they are actually obviously reviewing the strategic approach to actually the development of actually apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships actually in Wales. They will have that responsibility because that policy for apprenticeship will remain with Welsh Government, but obviously they will actually, the application of apprenticeships actually will be delivered actually through MEDR. And we therefore think actually that it's appropriate that we wait actually to see what they're actually going to be actually developing. And then actually, as we actually glean more information, we will actually bring that information back to a future meeting. Okay.
Thank you for that update, Lisa. Are there any comments, questions for Lisa on this particular item? Thank you. So if we just go back to the minutes and see if there are any matters arising for them. Again, I'll just quickly run through the numbers. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can't see any hands going up. So in which case, if we can agree those as a correct and accurate record of the meeting in March.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that takes us into part 2 of the meeting. And we're going to have the Quality in Education and Training update, which I'm looking, is it Anton that you're leading on that?
I will do, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If I can just make the comments we've obviously got quite a good, and comprehensive agenda. Everybody will have read the papers, so we can just pull out the main highlights and then we can spend as much time on the questions as possible.
Shall be brief. Thank you very much. My name is Ansawdd. I'm the postgraduate dean. I'm presenting a brief update on the quality of education and training project and the task and finish group that was established in March on behalf of the members and Tom Wilson, who is not here today. So you've all read the paper. The issues are that improvement and quality is key deliverables for the HEIW quality agenda and quality plan. We established a task and finish group for education and training in March 2023. And the background to this is that a huge proportion of some of the work that we do is commissioned education and training programs for nursing, AHPs, healthcare science, medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and optometry. And all of these training and education activities take place in a really quite complex and moving environment, but it's really important that we understand the issues related to quality in those areas and that we understand roles, responsibilities, quality assurance, where our management responsibilities lie altogether. So the education and training task and finish was established with clear deliverables, which are included in the paper. And those include developing a clear quality management system that clarifies roles and responsibilities, to have standards that can underpin these, to describe how we will measure and apply these standards and what good fit looks like, to create a dashboard that would support quality assurance in education, and to address the infrastructure that is needed to deliver that. The progress to date is clearly highlighted in the paper. What is clear is that there are a large amount of education and training programs supported and delivered by HEIW, and they're all slightly different, but they all have the basic components of roles in terms of assurance, control, management, and improvement. And we've spent having some meetings underlining and unpicking what the organizational responsibilities are. To move us forward in our work, we've set up a approach to what the quality management system would look like. There's a drawing explaining the relationship between our quality policies, frameworks, guidelines, and standard operating procedures. We then go on to describe the subgroups and the next steps and timescales. Timescales are short and needs to be rapid, and we are working very rapidly together to achieving those. And the next steps and timescales are highlighted within the paper. So what we are asking is for ECQC to note that we are working and we've established a task and finish group, that we've got outputs from that plans, and can you just receive a note of the update. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Anton. And yeah, at that point, therefore, I'll open it out to questions. I looked straight at Jill because I knew she would definitely have one. So Jill.
Thanks, Anton. It's only a brief question, and it may have been in previous papers and I haven't seen it, but is there somewhere that sets out what each education function is? Because I couldn't quite get my head around what's an education and training function. You know, how many are there? Where are they? All the rest of it. Is there some? Have I missed it? Is there something that sets out where they all are in the organisation?
So the education and I think we've just put it into very large categories into this paper, Jill. So the education and training functions that we are concentrating on for the purposes of this is the ones that we commission and deliver both undergraduate and postgraduate. So we're talking about those which are hosted in the main, in the nursing and AHP in the directorate and within the medical directorate. So these would be the programs that are aligned to nursing, AHPs, healthcare science, medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and optometry. Within nursing, for example, there is a large variety of commissioned programs, and within medicine, there would be more than 50 different types of curricula hosted, and similarly within other training areas. So I hope that will be clearly articulated when we complete the framework and the guides.
Judith?
Yeah, thank you. Coming to this it's a really informative paper, so thank you. I just have a couple of questions. In terms of section 4, which is your timescales, I just wonder if you could indicate where you are against the ones that are there for July and August, which obviously we're in the middle of July, so they're quite tight. And in terms of the dashboard, which feels to me like fairly significant to enable you to deliver this, there isn't actually a date for the creation of the dashboard. So I just wondered if you could help with that as well.
So in terms of the actions which has got July 2024 in it, so the subgroups met this week and last week. And so the first draft of a quality management framework is literally in draft. And I think that needs to go back to the rest of the task and finish group members. The quality guide is in draft. And so I'm fairly hopeful. It is the 11th of July. I have noted, but I'm fairly confident that those will be ready to go back to the task and finish group by the end of this month. We then have to get and update that to exec team, etc. Yes. In terms of the dashboard creation, so I think the first step for us is to agree which are the primary data that we want to include in that dashboard, and then drag it out and liaise with our colleagues from digital to see what we already have a lot of data available, but we need to just clarify the immediate problem.
You'll probably find that I'm quite keen on dates and knowing when things are going to be delivered by. And I'm quite happy for those to be reasonable. I'm not looking for, there's a lot of work here, so I understand it's a huge ask. But I think to enable me to see how things are going and anything I can do to help, or collectively, that would be important. So it'd be useful to have an idea of the timescale around dashboard. Is that right in front of me?
Yeah,
sorry.
We have a significant programme across data and analytics. We're supporting probably up to about 40 different requests at the moment for dashboards, and we're bringing a paper which you'll get some of that background to the board in July about the trajectory that we've been on. So we're on the task and finish group. We can't develop a dashboard till we know the requirements, the specifications, but we're well aware how important this is in actually us understanding. And I think changing the reporting to this group as well, so that dashboard will help evolve the measures and the things that we bring in, and I think help evolve the conversation that happens in this group. So once we've got that detail, it is firmly on our plan, and we'll work together as part of the task and finish group to get a date. So from a confidence perspective, we're taking it really seriously. We don't know what it is yet, so we can't absolutely confirm the date, but we are absolutely see the importance of it amongst the other work programmes. So we will get you. I've heard we will get you a date as soon as we know the
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
I love that, Judith. I think we all like a good date. We all like to make sure that we hit them. I know Lisa wants to come in, but my comment that I had on that was similarly, and I hear what you're saying in relation to you don't really know yet what you're going to have to produce, but I did note it was kind of dependent on the resource availability within the digital team. So I'm just going to ask, do you think, are you confident that you have the resource available, so with an unknown quantity, to be able to do this?
As some of the board members will appreciate, we've had conversations about the risk in the data and analytics team since the last board discussion. We have raised analytics data resource to the corporate risk register, so you will be aware of that. We are also compiling for executive team consideration a resource requirement paper. So in Q1, on top of our already very full IMTP programme, we had 15 additional requests for work just in Q1. And therefore, we've set up a prioritisation approach to consider how, in conjunction with core members and planning, how we take on board some of this. So we've got a robust process for prioritisation. We understand the importance of this piece of work, but until I'm not going to be able to give you an answer.
Yeah.
But what I can say is we are trying every which way to mitigate that risk, and we've got full support of the executive team to kind of get to a point, because the realisation of how important and where this takes us really. So lots of different pieces happening to answer that, I guess.
And I think that was my very point. And I think that in my back of my head, I was thinking of the number of requests that were coming through and the importance, and your sort of it's your own success in some respects that means that people are wanting that. So that's very helpful. Thank you. Lisa.
Yeah, just to actually compliment that and to bring members actually make them aware really more than anything. And this work actually has started because actually the importance of actually recognising that it needed to be done. And I'm pleased to say we obviously actually appointed a quality sort of associate director actually, and they started in 1st of June, and that's actually will be. So Rosalie actually started this work actually with the team to begin with, and actually initiate actually this piece of work. But obviously actually Maria coming in actually will actually obviously really oversee and take that forward as well. So that's actually the fresh pair of eyes actually to look at this. And actually to bring actually, and I know James actually asked for this, so we can see that transparency actually across all actually the different programmes. It will take time, actually, because actually there are a number of facets in this, but recognising actually that resource has only just joined us on June 1st as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
We've got challenges actually.
Are there any other further questions? Chat.
Comment. I think this is a really important piece of work, and considering how much money we spend on education and training, you know, that shining a light into this area, but it also goes to the core of what's in our title, improvement. So I think for two counts, I think this would come very high on the priorities for the board. My second comment is, as you're putting things in the boxes, is it possible to identify the regulators? The responsible regulators, because it's going to we're going to be into areas in the future where we may need to work across regulators. And I think it's a complex field. I think we've got 31 regulators. So it'd be really good to, as well as identifying the courses and quality of the education, who is setting the standards? And then the other wish, of course, would be any of the national reports that come out, for good or bad, how they could feed into through an automatic mechanism to say there's a new report. So sorry.
I think it's something that we could take away and look at, because I think you're absolutely right, Chair, in terms of actually respecting actually that it's not neat, and it actually doesn't actually reflect every single programme, and there will be cross-cuts across actually certain programmes, but it's something we can take away and actually feed into that particular process.
Sorry, Chair.
Thank you.
No, thank you. That's very useful comment.
Chair, sorry,
Sean.
I think some people are having an issue with that.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that.
It's not our internet connection. It's not us. It's admin control itself that seems to be the problem.
When you next get in, can you download it?
Sarah, is this on Shape? Are these papers on SharePoint anyway? Do you want me to put the papers up? Do you want to send me the link? And
I think that might be helpful, because I don't know to what extent our presenters are going to need them. So that is possible.
Multitasking.
Multitasking. I don't know how long that will take you, Sean, but I think it would be quite good if you're happy, if we do try and sort of keep the meeting going.
Yeah.
So as Anton said, that particular paper, we were asked to receive and note the update, which I think we have duly done. So thank you very much. Okay, so next item 2.2 and 2.2.1, it's the multi-professional education and training quality assurance updates. And if we can start with medicine. So back to you, Anton.
Thank you, Chair. So there's a little risk here. I'm working off, I think, the last copy I had on my laptop because I can't access admin control. Thank you very much. I'm presenting this medical deanery quality update for assurance to ECQC, and we are asking the committee to note this paper as providing an overview of our current risks and exceptions relating to postgraduate medical and training in HAW, and what actions we are doing to address these. And we also would like you to note some positive exceptions. I'm sure you've read the paper. In terms of issues to note as exceptions, of course, foundation training is noted early on in the first. And the update here is that in Wales there are 452 paid programs in foundation in F1. There has been an increase in the number of outputs from medical schools. Therefore, we have a foundation program that is oversubscribed, and previously large amounts of withdrawals have then led to undersubscription. This is combined with a different way of allocating posts in this year through preference-based allocation. And the current situation is, I guess the good news is that it looks like currently we have more 15 or 16 or 17 more posts, more placeholders than posts at the moment. We expect withdrawals to continue to happen so that we will end hopefully with less withdrawals in a less undersubscribed program that has happened before. We are actively managing this through communication with our stakeholders, which include the doctors in training themselves, the health boards, and the exec team, and managing that actively, and we're communicating continuously, and more communication is going out today. Around recruitment, I wish to highlight the good recruitment numbers in general practice, in secondary care and specialty training. Overall recruitment is good. There is some exceptions noted in the report, and they are for very different reasons in different areas. Happy to take questions on those later. We mentioned the work of our trainee think tank, the educational infrastructure that we've put in place, and how that is supporting trainees and training at the moment. It's always very important for the ECQC to know about exceptions to the management of training quality. And I know that that's on everybody's mind. I have included a summary of those LEPs or those training environments, which currently with us is in enhanced monitoring. Enhanced monitoring is something which is recommended by HEIW in our targeted process, but in action by the regulator, the General Medical Council in the end. And there are 4 departments currently in enhanced monitoring. I just want to point out that although some of the sites are in enhanced monitoring, there are actually trajectories of improvement. As always, it's easier to go into enhanced monitoring than it is to come out of it, and you have to show sustained improvement. That we have to always reassure our stakeholders that we note the improvements where those are happening, even though they remain in enhanced monitoring with the GMC, and we very regularly meet with them. Happy to take any questions on those. We have listed some of the other high risk concerns that we are continuously working with partners, together with partners through the targeted and process. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention some quality assurance activity in as far as we get quality assurance feedback from the regulator very regularly. We've had feedback on last year's quality assurance cycle, from which the GMC indicated they are satisfied with our approach to quality, and no specific requirements or recommendations were made by the medical regulator. I just wanted the ECQC to note. We have completed our self-assessment data for this year, and we'll await feedback on that. And the regulators sometimes, when we do self-reporting, ask to dip into some of our activity to have a look at what we are doing. And this year, they attended a meeting with our health boards together with us, and feedback from the regulator was that they felt that there was no specific feedback in our interaction. So it's a 6-page report that has got quite a lot of bits of info in. Very happy to take any questions or any comments related to the paper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anton. I know it's difficult in terms of some people may have jotted their questions down on admin control, but I'm going to open it out to questions. And I understand that there is somewhere that we might be able to find the papers. Dan, is that right?
It's back.
Oh, it's back. Yeah.
They are printed on a website.
Well, just in case they go down again, they are on the website.
We can questions to the website.
And with questions. Yeah, so, right, do people, I can open it out to questions, or if people just need to get there. Judy?
Yeah, which is why I always write my questions down the old-fashioned way. I'm sorry.
I think I might do that.
Having used to having control for some time before. And please forgive me for some of these because I'm sure it's probably because I'm reading this the first time. So I'll start, if I can, just go down the ones I've got. Starting with GP training, you reference this on page 4 about the courses that you run for trainers, and you mentioned that 66 have successfully completed. But obviously, that's a small number out of the total cohort. So I just wondered how often GP trainers are required to attend refresher courses. Do they have refresher courses, and is there a process, if people don't attend? What's your sort of situation with that? Do you want me to go through all of them, or do you want to take one at a time?
Probably one at a time, in this instance, because if anything like me, I forget the first question, but
sorry,
second.
Sorry, I'm trying to get back into admin control at the same time. So these are prospective, if I remember correctly, these are the prospective GP courses we're talking about. These are for new trainers.
Yeah, so yes, they are. So for the existing trainers, do they have an update training refresher?
So within general practice training, as far as I'm aware, there's continuous CPT office for training, but and training practices are inspected virtually every year, and physically, I think it's every 5 years.
Okay.
My GP colleagues are not here to, but I think it's so physically inspected, and those trainers are expected to stay up to date.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
And there's regular GP trainer workshops.
Right.
And they have to attend, you have to attend on a regular basis, otherwise you get the naughty button.
Thank you. If I move on to the faculty teams, you reference quite a few interviews around new people to come into the roles. I just wondered whether you've been successful in appointing at all those interviews. And you then talk about the appraisal for faculty teams. I just wondered where are the outcomes of the appraisal reported? Is that brought together in a report for an internal committee for the execs? Does it come here at any stage?
So I was expecting both of those questions, which are quite good.
Did you line them up? You're sitting next to each other. Did you pass them?
Honestly, that's my as well.
I knew them, but I did note that Joel was also in the room who I have met before. So
and we didn't coordinate either.
You've got it then. Sorry, I've just got my able assistant.
Okay.
So first questions first was around appointments.
Yeah.
Okay. So the faculty lead roles do have a reasonable turnover because they turn over every 3 years. Some people get appointed at the moment, and I have said before that there has been challenges before in filling all these faculty lead roles. The educational environment, in fact, the NHS environment right now is a tough one.
Yeah.
And therefore getting folks to take up additional responsibilities has been difficult before. We have always highlighted the importance of taking part in training, what an honour and privilege it is to be able to take up these roles. We have 19 faculty lead roles, and I think that currently they are all filled and recruited to, bar one which is out to recruitment. And I'm pretty certain that we're going to fill it. This changes And I'm just making it clear that it is more difficult to attract people to these posts, but at the moment those posts are full. In terms of faculty team appraisal, faculty team appraisal is something that I'm very familiar with. Within each of our health boards, we have a team of people, and this will include the faculty leads, GPPTS, SAS doctors, the medical education managers, librarians, etc. We have made the opportunity available for that group to come together with us so that we can look at how they function and what they want to achieve in a formative way each year. That was disrupted a bit during COVID. We look at faculty teams using a Comisiynu model process, structure, process, and outcomes. We feed it back to them. Those faculty team appraisals are reasonably has been completed very recently. So those reports will come to the exec team and then go out to the faculty teams after that.
Okay. And this is more one that, I mean, perhaps I can pick up when we do meet, but in terms of the high risk concerns,
Yes.
I suppose it's just the future. To me, it would be helpful, and maybe this does exist if there is a timetable for. You've listed when some of the reviews are rescheduled, and some of them like noticed are in July.
Yes.
But whether there is a programme of these visits at all, whether that's available, and maybe that's something we could talk about.
Yes, there's an annual programme, and then programmes of things that move depending on risk. So there's available.
Great, thank you. And I suppose I asked this question because it's going to we know it's competitive to attract people, and I also am aware how influential the GMC survey is in guiding trainees as to where they go. So I'm glad to see that will come through in September. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. I think everybody's probably managed to resolve the admin control. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed it doesn't go down again. Jill, did you have any further questions?
I just had a couple, Ansawdd. I ticked off Judith's off my list, which is reassuring. They all the way through. I mean, this has come a long way. So I say this from a position of this is a much improved paper from where we started this journey. So I think I want to say that we're now getting so much information that's really good quality that inevitably there's going to be still more questions because we're now getting the information. So really good paper. Just two points, Ansawdd. All the way through it, and I'm going to pretend to be John Gammon here. All the way through, it tells me that I can take assurance, but it leaves me asking how. And I guess it's what is the right number? What's the equation kind of thing? And do we have too many, too little of each? So it's just a general point where it tells me I can take assurance, and I immediately think, well, no, I can't, because I haven't quite got, is that good? Is it bad? So it's more of a general point. And my other point was, and I think I might have said this privately to you, the STEME conference, just really thinking about it, because I'm sure you're planning it for next year, is for me, and I was new to it, it felt like it needed to be a little bit more primary and community and multifaceted based. It felt quite secondary and medical based. So I'm just saying that really because it triggered my thoughts when I was reading it. If we could think about that maybe for next year. So those are my only points on. Thank you.
I think both of those are really excellent questions. So I guess and I think this is a question we will be having probably after today as well, in terms of assurance. When we say the committee can be assured, for example, when we look at the quality assurance data from our regulator, the committee can be assured that our regulator are assured that the way we are doing things is acceptable. That should provide assurance in my mind.
Yeah.
When it comes to numbers, Phil, this is much more difficult and more complicated. But if you're expecting 450 foundation training, you should be assured that we are working to accommodate 450 foundation trainings, that we have posts for them, that if we are going to get 400, that we've done everything that we can to get 450. And if we get 460, that we've done everything that we can do as an organization to get the 450. And that we've been proactive and discussed with our exec colleagues and our finance colleagues and everybody else, if there is a risk that either one of these two ways doesn't get. I think that's where the assurance lies. Because I don't think we can always say we are going to get 450 and not 451 or 449. That's my very simple answer. May I answer the second question about STEAM as well?
Sian, do you want to just come in? Because I think
that's the assurance on the numbers. I think the missing piece, and we've talked about this, haven't we, is about the longer, our ability to have that longer term workforce plan in our region. So I think the assurance is on what we said we were going to do. We have done that. More strategic planning of a long term workforce plan is a different question and almost a different environment. So the insurance against our plan is what's coming here. Our strategic position, our policy is almost a different question. Is the root maybe of your question is that fit for purpose? Does that lead us to a model of years of the workforce? It's almost a different place that we were having those conversations, it feels like. So against our original ETP, we said we needed, we didn't get. It's just part of the assurance. I think strategically we're all working through that longer term plan and taking your advice of the board through that piece as well.
And I briefly add to that, I wasn't there to the quality hat on, is quality is not always quantitative.
No.
It has to be qualitative as well. And therefore, as Anton has actually absolutely described, that you can measure numbers, but then it's about the qualitative interventions that you actually undertake in order to achieve that. And we know the challenges. So in terms of trying to get that 100%, that's our aim. But nevertheless, the qualitative interventions that you underneath that to actually try and achieve that. And that's something you can't actually put numbers to.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Angela, do you want to take Jill's second one?
Oh, very briefly, back to the first one. I can't agree any more with Lisa from that, because in some programs you'd like to expand, but if you want to keep the quality of that program, we have to be a bit more prudent. Around the second question, and I'm very mindful that this is a public forum. So I just want to say that when we had our STEAM conference after COVID, the tickets sold out faster than the Coldplay concert. So it literally 4 hours to sell out tickets to our STEAM conference. So and we should go big, we need to prepare for that. It would have to be more than a one-day event. It would have to be a bigger event, and we have to find an events team. So really the ambition is there. It was less than 4 hours.
It's very, very good.
And I'll add to that one as well. So we have healthcare scientists as part of our professional group of educators, and they are a key part and key contributors to that STEM conference. They actually do a lot of work in trying to encourage young people to take up STEM careers as well. So that was actually added there.
Thank you. So,
just a question, and you might have clarified this previously. In the enhanced monitoring, it is clarifying what's the duration of that enhanced monitoring? And is there anything that, I suppose it's understanding what is the assurance level. You're all giggling, so it's obviously been asked before.
And so, yes, it has.
You don't answer your question.
So, enhanced monitoring is the highest level of monitoring. It's imposed by the regulator, and it usually ask for very specific aims and objectives. Let's not call them smart objectives, but they are smart objectives. And then a revisit is scheduled at the time that you go into enhanced monitoring. Because every situation of enhanced monitoring is for different reasons, the visit may be set up usually around between 4 and 6 months. And then at each visit, the next visit will be planned, and the regulator attends those visits as well. Progress is measured, feedback is provided, and the next meeting is up. But there isn't a standard amount of time for enhanced monitoring. It is dependent on improvement, the trajectory, other issues which invariably come up, and the regulator usually wants to be really sure that this is going to be maintained before they offer the removal of enhanced monitoring. I think at the last ECQC we have presented folks that's come out of enhanced monitoring, but it's very difficult to provide you with that. It is usually 1 year or it's usually 6 months. It depends on the training environment.
Chris?
I do have a comment about getting underneath the belly of the quality in this. And the question is, what's the GMC survey saying about the feedback from the trainees? Secondly, what's the attrition rate? Are there patterns of attrition? Thirdly, what's the average length of time to gain CTC? So what's the trajectory? So we take expanding, getting more. How long is it taking to get that more through? What are the different patterns of training? So what proportion are part-time? What proportion are full-time? And what's the have we got markers for differential attainment?
Getting a lot of good questions today, Anton.
I don't want answers now. I'm just saying that those are the sorts of things that perhaps in the future across and I'm not just picking on medicine. I think, you know, those are the sorts of things that would be very useful looking forwards.
Just a quick point, Anton, to respond to that.
I'm not going to respond to all the questions because but this is another important evolution or iteration, I think, for me, of how we present information to the ECQC, because the chair mentioned, for example, the MC's training survey data, which is really vital. It's one source of very important data that people look at and we look at very carefully. So the timing of how we present those findings to this committee is really important. So the GMC training survey just closed. The preliminary data is now just filtering through. So my colleagues in the quality unit will be starting to digest and report that information. So I would be hopeful that, for example, at the next ECQC, so there will be a point in a year, which would be a really good point to bring that data to the committee because it's out. And we will bring that, as we have done before, to the committee when it's been commissioned.
I think there's a link back here now to the task and finish group.
Yeah.
So out to the task and finish group, we would get the measures that we are going to equally judge apples and apples and consistency of information. That comes back to the requirement for the dashboard, and then we start to make sure that your list is included in that reporting, and we're applying it equally across, and then equally across medical.
That goes to the heart of the John Gammon approach.
Yeah.
It's not are we assured, it's to what extent are we
Absolutely.
assured.
And I think that's why the task and finish group and understanding those quality measures through that work helps us build or get to a point of being able to build. It may take a bit of time, go back to what is the scope, and then that changes the reporting again.
Just shows how critical that piece of work is.
Sorry, Chair.
No, that's fine. It's very helpful because that feeds nicely into the previous discussion that we had. My colleagues, as you might expect, have asked questions. I had a really tiny specific one, and it was just when I was looking through the paper, and it was around the fill rate for geriatric medicine, which seems, it seems really low and really worrying given our demography and what's going to be happening in the future. And I see it does say that we don't believe it to be any kind of training and quality concerns. But can you just tell us a little bit about what might be happening, what we're going to be doing, what's going to be happening?
So it's a very interesting area, geriatric medicine. Geriatric medicine has been undersubscribed across the UK, I think, for a period of time. We had a couple of bumpy years. Then there was significant UK expansion all across the countries of the UK, which I think took up some of the numbers. And I think we're sort of back to relatively low fill rates for geriatric medicine. There are a few regions in the UK in which recruitment's really good, but in general, it's not really good. So we need to do you picked out the one that I really think we need to go and have a look at because we don't quite understand. There is no real signal about poor training quality, and it hasn't been, but the geriatric medicine is the one that we need to look at more carefully. Pick out the right, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, we are asked to note the paper that's provided the overview and current risks and exceptions in relation to medical training and to note positive exceptions and progress which we've done. Thank you for that. Okay, so we can move on to item 2.2.2, that's dental. Kirsty.
Thank you. So I take the paper as read, as you've said, and that was a really helpful discussion in setting out the foundations around assurance. And we don't have the same regulatory landscape as the medics. However, quality conversations are really important in informing where we are. We also train beyond just dentists. We've commissioned undergraduate hygiene and therapy, and that we work closely with the commissioning team on that as well, and we deliver a dental nurse training programme. So there's a range of programmes and levels we're involved in. Dental foundation training, you'll be aware that dentistry is quite fragile at the moment, NHS dentistry, and this is impacting on training. The position as of today, we have 68 filled posts, 2 reserve posts, and we've had 4 educational supervisors withdraw in the last 6 weeks. And we're aware that 2 of those are because NHS contracts have been handed back. I have made the Chief Dental Officer aware of this as a threat to training as a risk, and it is on our risk register. So that's the position as of today, but there is still iterations of recruitment going through on national leave. So that may not be the final position. Dental core training position is as reported there as today. We've had some challenges with local recruitment in previous years, so we've put a SOP in place that we work with health boards on in terms of the local recruitment to manage that and standardise that approach better, because what we were finding was local health boards were putting trainees onto the wrong salaries, which was hugely adversely impacting. So we've put a standardisation arrangements in place to manage that. Specialty training position is as is. You can see there HAW has funded 4 academic training posts in Cardiff Dental School to support the academic faculty there, particularly in small specialties where there were a risk in terms of a dental school being equipped to deliver dental training. And one of the other things I will mention here is that we've worked really hard over the last 12 months to the regulatory landscape around dentistry is very challenging for overseas dentists, particularly. We can support overseas dentists in temporary registered posts, in core training, but in specialty training that's been limited to maxillofacial surgery because of their hospital units. But we've worked really hard and pushed back on the regulator and actually have managed to get a temporary registrant post into a specialty dentistry training post in the community dental services in North Wales. It's taken us 12 months working with the regulator and various bodies to do this, but we've broken new ground doing it, and they're about to start, so it's a really positive story. Dental therapy foundation training, that's a growing area. Some of our early indications are that dental therapists are coming into the NHS through our foundation training programme, whereas hygienists are tending to go more into the private sector, so we're working to expand that offer. Work is taking place through Welsh Government and Westminster to change the landscape that they can now work directly with the NHS contract. And all the barriers that were in place have been unlocked to facilitate that in terms of the contract and medications, etc. So we're working to expand that. The Undergraduate Commissioning for Hygiene and Therapy, we're working closely with colleagues in Cardiff University and Bangor University to expand the offer there. We're just having some final conversations around whether we can actually increase for a 2024 intake. They're oversubscribed with applicants for hygiene and therapy. The attrition rate is zero. There are no significant risks, so we're just working with colleagues to see if we can expand the offer further, because that would at least mitigate the reduction in foundation training places for dentists. So we're just working in that place there. I'll skip through to training progression. Timing of this is, we have no update for you at this moment, because the progression, the LRCPs will happen later this month, and we'll report at the next meeting, but there's no significant concerns. Doing a lot of work in the quality space in dental. Dental Training Forum now meets 3 times a year, and we have representatives from every programme and every scheme. Dental Training Survey was very well received, both by this committee and execs last year. That's going out at the end of this month. It was also received really positively nationally at peer group meetings. So we're repeating that this year in the absence of national surveys. So that's the first programme, first time, and then you can see some mitigating actions that we've done, particularly as a result of those surveys, highlighting some of the key issues. And we've worked quite closely with the Dental Hospital in Cardiff to put mitigating actions in place. And they, to be fair, there's been quite a lot of work done there. There's a room being identified for trainees. There's a lot more IT being, some basic things that were not available have been put in place now. So it's yielded really positive. We're hoping for a very different set of results from the survey this year that should reflect the improvements that have been made. And we're also putting education supervisor surveys out for the first time this year to our trainers across full and specialty training. So there's a lot of work going on in the dental deanery, aligned with the quality work that we've talked about in the task and finish group, and we are working there to improve the position. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kirsty. I'll open it out to questions.
Sorry, I feel like it's all me. Okay, forgive me. I haven't really got a question on the detailed report. It's very easy to understand, and that's fine. I guess I'm thinking we're having this report when we know strategically dental provision across the UK, but focused on Wales, is really poor. Not the standard, but the access. And we did talk a bit about that when we met this week. But I suppose it links back to what Sian was saying about strategic approach. I just wonder, where are the discussions about strategic approach to dentistry? Because when you talked, we're all members of the public, we all have different experiences in trying to access dental care and different ways of doing it, but we know it's a big issue. And this feels like, yes, this is really informative, it's great information, that's great. But if the landscape is it's a pretty critical stage, I just wonder where those discussions are taking place and actually understanding where HEIW's role is in having those discussions, which I assume is probably with Welsh Government.
Yes, so you asked a really, really good question. There are a number of parts to it. There are contract negotiations going on between Welsh Government and EDA. We're not at the table for those contract negotiations. The contract is fundamentally a big part of the problem.
Yes.
Because, as I say to the Chief Dental Officer on many occasions, we may not have a workforce crisis. We just don't have the workforce where we want them. And that's the NHS. There are some big strategic conversations around workforce going on. And that's around the community dental service and looking to strengthen that to improve access. There's a dental access portal coming later this year where patients will register and health boards will be allocating patients. So there are a number of big things happening. However, there is no long-term strategic plan for dentistry for Wales. England has done a long-term workforce plan where there are ambitions to increase the number of training, etc., etc. At the moment, we're still working to a Healthier Wales original. There's not a long-term plan beyond these initial.
And I suppose my understanding is Wales where does HCIW have a role in influence that? I assume we have. It's just where we take that.
We're trying very hard.
Okay.
It is
I'm sure you are.
number one concern of our chief exec around those conversations.
Yeah.
But it becomes a conversation of Welsh Government and position, and the direction at the moment is around a refresh of Healthier Wales that takes us within the same time scale, or broadly a slightly extended time scale. So we are working within the parameters of those policy decisions that are being set, but lots of conversations are happening in different places through the chair and the chief exec around, I'm sure, influencing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? I've got a small one because I'm taking a particular interest in our college student experience going forward, and obviously I gave a little bit of an update on both the trainee forum and the survey, and it's just particularly from now that we've got that forum, and how are we responding to the things that coming through there, and are there some specific examples that we've kind of heard raised there that there's been something done about, if you like? Because I want to be able to say, you know, we heard and we've done.
Absolutely. Yes. So it's been really positive. The chief exec attended one of the training forums. They are led by our dental training clinical fellow. So they're led by a peer. Every representative submits a kind of a brief report beforehand, some specific things that have come out, and the dental specialty network came out of concerns raised at the forum. Some of the issues with NWSSP that have directly fed back to them, so now they join the meetings and the training forum meetings. So there are, and at every meeting, reflect on the meeting before and the actions that were agreed, and then they are taken forward. So yes, is the short answer to you. I think yes, we are absolutely closing that loop of feeding back to the trainees and giving them that voice, and then taking the actions and putting things in place to mitigate where they raise concerns.
Thank you. I can't see any further hands. Thank you for the update, Kirsty. So again, we're asked to note the paper providing the overview of the risks and exceptions, which we've done, and to note the positive exception of progress. Thank you, and thank you for your report as always. Okay, so 2.2.3 pharmacy. Great.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Just wanted to note that this report hasn't significantly changed since the March meeting, and that's because we're in a period of not recruitment and not moving into a different space. So we're in a bit of a steady state at the moment. So the report is virtually identical to the one we saw in March. We don't have any major concerns at the moment with any of our trainees going through the current training process. So we're happy to not report any of that. I think I just wanted to highlight here to those who I know are new to this committee that it's really important that the committee understand that our education and training spans the whole sectors of practice. That's from acute into GP practice into community pharmacy. So both of the programmes that you see here, both the foundation trainees and our pre-registration pharmacy technicians, span across that sector of practice, which in itself brings different challenges and opportunities. So just so that you're aware, we are training the whole of the workforce across those sectors. I think it's worth noting that our regulator, we mentioned regulator, we are in a state of huge change, both to our initial education and training for pharmacists, but also our regulator has now just finished a consultation around strengthening the quality of education and training across all of our workforce. That includes our pre-registration pharmacy technicians. So we will see a significant change in the next year across all of our requirements to meet quality education and training in pharmacy, which can only be a good thing because it has been rather hands-off rather than hands-on. So for our foundation trainees, as you see in the paper, we have had to do a much more robust accreditation of a foundation training program 25-26. We have been through our accreditation in May this year with our regulator, which was it was quite an experience because it's very aligned to the MFARM programme. So it's a very intense, document-heavy accreditation process. I can't formally in this open forum tell you the outcome other than we were very pleased with the outcome, and certainly I think compared to our UK colleagues, we're in a much happier place than they are. So I think that's the most I can say, because we're not expecting that formal letter from the registrar until the end of this month. And I just wanted to note here that, you know, that has been a huge amount of work for the team within HIW, but they did a fantastic job. And the other thing I just wanted to note was that over the last 3 to 4 years, we've been on this journey of transformation. The reason I believe we've been so successful in our accreditation is because not only the hard work of HIW team, but the fantastic partner relationships we've built up over the last 3 or 4 years as we've gone on this transformation. And that was very evident when we had our accreditation panel, and GPHC noted that was how much our partners, our training providers, were absolutely on it, knew exactly what was happening, felt very supported. So I just wanted to note that I think that's been a huge success to where we've come to. I don't think there was anything specific else I was going to mention at this point. Things, as I say, are steady state. I have got nothing of concern.
Thank you. Any specific questions for Margaret? No, thank you, Margaret. Thank you for that comprehensive report and reassurance. So members are asked to note the report for information and assurance. I've just spotted the time. I'm doing terribly as a chair. We're supposed to have concluded this, but this is a really important section of the meeting. So I don't want to kind of curtail presentations and opportunities for discussions. I'm hoping we'll make up a little bit of time in other items. So conscious of that because David is kicking me under. Optometry 2.24. Anton? Or is it verbal update? Yes, I thought. I'm sorry. How rude of me. Apologies.
So, I believe you've been asked to accept a verbal update from yourself. Just to paint a picture for optometry to start with, we do not commission undergraduate or a foundation year as such. Our role is funding and commissioning postgraduate education, so that optometrists in practice, once qualified, can deliver the eye care services that are now demanded by the new optometry contract in Wales. So in terms of the commissioned work, we have a programme of work where we sponsor a number of glaucoma, independent prescribing, postgraduate education modules, currently with Cardiff University. In terms of our fill rates, they're 100%. In terms of our start rates, we're pretty much 100%. There was one, unfortunately, in glaucoma, where they didn't get to start because of the issue with their practice not allowing them more time. In terms of what we feel is the really significant portion that I'm not able to report today is what happens once they've finished and how many of them take that forward into their service provision. We will be working with the health force to get that data at the moment, because the new optometry contract started in April. There's understandably a preparedness issue in health force and getting geared up for that. We're delivering that now, but it's taken a while. In terms of there are no specific issues, we generally look at the quality planning and the quality improvement aspect of our qualifications. The only thing that we've done differently this time for the March 2024 cohort, and we'll do for the September 2024, is asking practices for a specific letter that they will support their trainee through the programme. That's identified because of the dropout we had from one student whose practice didn't support them. So there are no further issues that require escalation, but that's an update. I hope to bring you news about the service provision on the next ECQ to September.
Thank you, Nick. Are there any questions for Nick? No. Oh, thank you for that. Well, we've noted your verbal update and we look forward to receiving a report at the next ECQC. Yeah. Lisa, Nursing and Health Professionals Education.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And as you can imagine, this actually builds on previous papers and previous information that you've received in terms of how we've actually obviously developed it to the Education Commissioner for a number of professions. This includes nurses, health and allied health professionals and healthcare scientists. It addresses actually significant issues, and we actually obviously commission education, both pre-reg and actually post-registration as well, and obviously look at the pipeline actually from the beginning right through to the end. So we are looking at that continuum in order to be able to report actually what is actually going on here. We have significant contracts actually in place actually for our pre-reg programmes. Actually, they were implemented back in 2021. And they are sort of continually monitored on a regular basis. There is a clear contract actually performance actually framework that we do follow there. And I just want to draw the attention that obviously we've just received the annual quality returns from HAIs, and as we specify in that report, they are currently being reviewed and will actually be brought actually as a report to the next meeting. Okay, but as you're picking up actually on key issues in here, where we look at actually sort of our pipeline, we look at the attraction and the recruitment actually into our programs, and also actually the graduates actually too. So as we know actually last year, we actually introduced actually a number of initiatives actually to enhance actually the application and fill rates actually into our sort of pre-reg programs. And we actually sort of achieved actually the highest number of actually some of those applicants actually run a fill rate actually in September last year. So therefore, that's a key piece of work that we're doing now. We currently know actually what the application rates may be within HEIs, and actually, as you can imagine, the conversations and discussions that we have actually with the HEIs currently is quite close because we monitor this. This is the time of year we get many people actually coming actually from their A levels, actually needing to access university. But our applications don't always actually translate into what we call fill rates. So fill rates are the ones actually that we really know that they are actually accessing those programmes. It is a challenge actually across the UK, not just in Wales, but nevertheless, actually we've never taken our foot off that pedal to try and actually introduce a number of initiatives in that respect. As you can see, we've got challenges in certain areas. And if I say mental health and learning disability nursing, that is a key area that we've always actually had challenges, and it is a UK one. But what I can confirm to you, actually, there's a summer campaign currently underway, actually trying to introduce people actually into mental health nursing. There's another number of initiatives that you are doing it in another way to get people actually to take on mental health nursing, but it is a summer campaign of actually sort of that's going on in Wales at the moment to try and attract people actually to come into that pre-reg programme. The paper actually describes that we've actually got a very formal actually contractual performance actually framework as well, and that describes to you actually that, like actually sort of Anton has described, how we actually review that actually with all our big contracts and the interventions. And actually it is a dialogue. It is about being firm, being fair, but also actually transformation and actually working collaboratively to improve actually that quality of education and the outcomes we want as well. Attrition is actually something we look at actually quite closely, and we did a significant piece of work actually working with our digital colleagues to understand what we meant by attrition, because there are a number of definitions in that arena. And actually some people actually have actually what they call an interruption of studies. So in other words, quite genuinely, they leave their studies and they will pick it up again at a later date for a number of different reasons. But we wanted to be quite specific where there were ones that they were leaving the programme, why they were leaving the programme, and actually what actually interventions and HEIs put in place in order to encourage and support them to actually continue the programme too. So this is actually embedded actually in that actually contractual conversations that we have. We've mentioned actually in actually about physician associates, and the board actually has been briefed in terms of actually the current situation actually on that arena. And actually the work that we're currently doing to understand actually the current graduate situation and actually the ongoing actually education commissioning too. Picking up on the graduates, we're very keen to understand we can train as many people as we like, but the more important aspect is actually that they come and work in the NHS in Wales. And you will see a table in there where we actually keep heed of actually how many graduates are coming through at this time of year, and how many of them actually access jobs in the NHS in Wales. And that is an area that specifically there we've got allied health professionals and healthcare scientists, because actually obviously they came away from streamlining. But nevertheless, actually we are actually putting in place an escalation process, which we currently actually undertake, of how we actually inform our health boards about the gaps actually in opportunities for vacancies going forward. So I'll stop there because it's quite a lot in there.
There's a very comprehensive paper. Yes, thank you, Lisa. If I can open it out to questions. John?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Lisa. Very comprehensive paper, and I detect that we're getting better and better information as time goes on, which is great. But same as I said on the medical paper, the more information we get,
the more questions you ask,
the more questions there are, I guess. Just two quick ones from me. Nursing, yeah, it's still down, but holding our own, as it were, I think. I keep hearing anecdotally about people not being able to get jobs. And I still struggle with this equation about our pipeline increasing, but the funded vacancies not being filled because of the issue. And so that's my first question. And the second one is on the post-grad education. I can see that we're getting better quality information. Is that translating into our financial position being a lot more accurate in terms of ups and downs?
So on the first aspect, as I said, we're quite keen to understand that how many of our graduates end up in NHS Wales, and many of them actually take up the bursary. So therefore it is actually incumbent on us actually not only to find actually the opportunities for those individuals, but it is a value for money issue, because we've invested actually in that education, and they've also received the funding as well. We've actually got a system actually in place in Wales which is called streamlining. As you will know, it works very effectively actually for nursing, midwifery, and obviously when it came to allied health professionals and healthcare scientists, there was a piece of work actually when I arrived here that we reviewed that, and actually allied health professionals and healthcare scientists, and we decided to remove them from that process, because they actually want to recruit graduates actually through the course of the year. I mean, I won't go into detail, but it is quite tricky. But actually, obviously, we are in conversation with health boards as to how we do that most effectively. You're right, Jill, actually, we're also actually keen to know, even actually though nursing actually goes through that process, is to make sure actually those vacancies are filled. And I think you're correct, actually, we've actually picked up, and this is the qualitative soft intelligence that we get, and we actually work on it, whereby that rumour did actually come through from a nursing actually in the arena, where they said, well, we found that you get any jobs, and yet I know there's vacancies across actually that nursing profession. When we actually looked into that, we actually worked actually with certain areas across Wales to understand where that view was coming from. And as you know, actually with streamlining, it is a process where there's an opportunity actually for our graduates to put their first, second and third choices. And actually when we actually drilled down to it, it was about people saying, I didn't get my first choice. And therefore, you know, we can't, and we actually start that process actually saying we can never guarantee that. But actually what I've had to got back actually from all the exec directors in nursing is we've all got vacancies. So there are vacancies in Wales should they take it. There's always challenges with individuals, but nevertheless, that's actually the qualitative stuff. Actually, when you take that in, understand it, go underneath it, and then actually feed that back as well. And we've actually fed that back to students as well. Actually, it's quite important to point.
Thank you.
On the post-registration actually front, actually what you'll see in there, then that we are so going to sort of look at actually post-registration in more detail. So important when we think about the sustainability of our current actually workforce. They actually want to look at career opportunities, and therefore that post-registration is so important. In HEIW, we are actually linked into all the planned pieces of work nationally, and the national priorities and the ministerial priorities, and a number of those streams of work come through those, recognising there is a need to actually look at the post-registration opportunities for certain groups. We're going to get better at this as well, because actually I think actually in the closed section you see actually how we're actually taking that forward as well.
Thanks, Lisa. Martin?
Yeah, just on the post-reg, but because it's a complicated arena, and where there's big numbers, we commission ourselves, but we do give allocations as well, post-reg allocations to the health boards every year, and we tell them what we want them to target against primary care and the other national programmes. We've now got a fantastic PI dashboard that's just been developed, which actually tells us for each health board or for each national programme, the numbers of their staff they put on each programme, the qualification they're doing, their profession, etc. So we're now collecting a lot better information around that. And what this has done as well, because we're sharing it with the universities and the health boards, we're ensuring that the take-up of places and the utilisation of that money is higher against the budget and appropriate against the spend.
That's a really useful thing, and something I'm sure we would be well with. Okay, right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I just got one observation.
You've got observer status.
I know.
I would like to.
I'll shut up then. But
no, it's all right. If you're quick, because I'm going to blame you if we overrun too much.
If we took the sum total of years 1, 2, and 3 of nursing in a rolling programme and counted the three years.
How many nurses have we got in training?
Yeah, now that will give you a surrogate as to whether or not the system is recruiting more and retaining and efficiently retaining.
But I will actually remind everybody actually that in all fairness to health boards, when they actually submit their MTPs actually and we actually formulate an education training plan, they request more than what we currently commission. And that is a challenge, and that's actually the conversation with actually the health boards as to how we actually enhance that opportunity. There are constraints actually within that actually in terms of placement opportunity, but as well as that contractual requirement. But actually it is important that despite the fact that they might actually ask for more, we cannot have actually any vacancies actually or graduates not actually gaining actually employment at the end. So it's quite a tricky equation. Do you want to add, Martin?
Just very quickly, Chair. Absolutely. And what we've seen, for example, in nursing, is that we've now sort of increased the number of placements available across the system by about 60%. We've got a really good, I'll get a gold star shout as I mentioned dashboards, but we've got a really good placement dashboards outlining where all of these placements are. And it's not just about getting more placements, it's about the diversification into primary community care, even in the independent sector, nursing homes, etc. So now that we've got this database, we're challenging different health boards in different areas about, well, this health board is looking there for their placements, and it ties into where the students go to work as well.
Yeah,
because we're not creating the right placements in the right areas for the right students at the right time, they're not going to go and work there at the end. So we're really getting more joined up around this. There's still work to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry to bring that to a conclusion, but it's a really interesting and important debate. So we're asked to note the report for assurance quality of efficient education, which I think we've done. Thank you. I am just going to remind everyone, because otherwise we're going to bump into all the meetings that we've got following on for the rest of the day. People have, I know they're very conscientious, have read the papers. So when you're presenting, if you can just give us 1 or 2 key highlights you want to bring to our attention, and then we can open it out to questions. So on that basis, Margaret, you're first up in that note. So 2.3, independent prescribing and quality.
Okay, I'll try and keep this as short as possible. just as a reminder, independent prescribing is people who are not dentists and doctors who want to become prescribers in their own right. So that's everybody excluding dentists and doctors. We use terminology as well, non-medical prescribers, which I know isn't popular, but it's trying to make sure that people realise this doesn't apply to doctors and dentists as we speak. So independent prescribing, as you know, is a programme. Become an independent prescriber, you have to go through a commissioned university programme, which is accredited by regulators to be able to deliver that programme. So there are three key players in this. There is a HIW, there is HEIs, and there's obviously the service. What we're seeing, which is why we're starting to have a quality framework around that, is there are increasing numbers of requests for our colleagues taking up independent prescribing. We know that there isn't enough courses. We know maybe the courses aren't quite where we need them to be because some of them are historical and not necessarily meeting the needs of our prescribers going forward. We know that capacity for supervision is a challenge. It's not just about capacity, it's about how those supervisors are enabled and feel confident and competent to take up the role of supervision. And also that there's perhaps planning of who goes forward for independent prescribing isn't quite where it needs to be. So we wanted this to be about how can we work through those three parts of the quality cycle to make sure that we get the right people into the training so we maximise the commissioning money that we spend, and that when they come out the other end, they actually can provide a service to the benefit of patients. So we're selecting the right people in the multidisciplinary team. And then once they are actually practicing, how do we support them to be able to be competent and confident? Because we are aware we have a lot of people in the system who have independent prescribing annotation but don't use it. Mm-hmm. So how can we enable them to start using it rather than training more and more people? So it's all around really that whole quality cycle of, planning, commissioning, managing, and then improving. So the steering group was set up to look at all those different aspects. There's two parts to the steering group. The one is the actual procurement, which is being considered through the SHREP 2 process. And then the other work stream is really looking at that quality planning and quality assurance. So we're on the very start of this journey. So we are currently looking at how can we help our health boards to plan more effectively so that when they do put forward people for IV training, they're actually considering who is it. It's quite an onerous course to go through. And if people don't actually realise what they're letting themselves in for, either through the training or the accountability and responsibility once you come out the other end, you can end up with a lot of attrition or people who just don't use the skills after they've been trained. So it's really important that we help our planners to really consider that carefully before they put people forward. Also, then we want to look at, as I said, we want to go out and find out who's out there at the moment. We have no idea. The health boards don't actually know who they've got who are prescribing actively or not, and how can we enable that? So there's a few elements to this. And I think just briefly, the one thing that's come out since the last committee meeting is the launch of the HEIW standards, competency assurance standards, which have been endorsed by Welsh Government. And that actually also puts a lens on, even once you are an independent prescriber, how do we make sure and assure our patients across Wales that those people are maintaining their competence to practice? So that is really a gallop through that, but I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you for galloping, Margaret, but it is an important piece of work and a very helpful update. Are there any questions?
Mine's a very simple one, and I apologise, I can't work out the acronym SLWG.
Oh, Short Life Working Group. Sorry, I should have written that out. So Short Life Working Groups, just to do a short piece of work to sort of inform.
I've not heard that before, so thank
sorry.
Jill,
Just a very quick one. It was about regulation.
Yeah.
Who regulates them currently, the independent providers currently?
Well, certainly across regulation, they all have an element of regulation and requirement. The standards that we put in place are really to make sure there is a consistency. This is not an add-on to the regulatory requirements. It's just an assurance that people in Wales are meeting at least these minimum requirements, because regulators require different things. So we're trying to have a even playing field. So with these standards, what we're saying is this is not an addition to what you do with regulation. It probably is what you're doing.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure everybody's having a minimum level of mentorship, peer review, etc. So we are unique. This isn't happening in other countries, and I know there are some, but it came very clear when we started working with health boards. One of the enablers of this is that they all have different policies about what they expected the independent prescribers to demonstrate that they were competent to practice, which meant you could be in one health board and then you'd move, and then another health board would expect you to do something else on top of everything. So this is about flexibility as well as standardization. Because it was very frustrating for independent prescribers when they move around the system, that everybody was asking them to do different things to provide assurance to the health board or the commissioner that they could practice.
And what I would say is, and complementing what Margaret is saying, of all the regulators that we've got, in pharmacy, in nursing, in healthcare, to be fair, all those regulators have taken on board the regulation and the standards that have been introduced by the pharmacist. Margaret is absolutely right. What been added and complemented is what I probably call the parameters of practice. So therefore, you've got that consistency. So you haven't got that employer flexibility, exactly as Margaret has described. So that's quite key, and it is something is unique in Wales. So I think we're sound in complementing those standards. So wherever you go, you know that's the same across all the health boards.
And I think the other thing just to add into the standards is the fact, which is unique, and not all regulators do this, is that a lot of regulators put a lot of onus on the professional requirements, which is absolutely important. But this actually puts some requirements onto the employer to make sure they are enabling their professionals to be safe to practice. And that's a different spin, because otherwise regulates, well, it's up to you to be able to demonstrate your competence. But actually, if the employer is not enabling that, that can be really difficult.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. It was a very comprehensive update, Margaret. Okay, so we move into part 3, and we are running quite significantly behind by now, so please be cognizant of that. So Lisa, draft education and training plan.
Okay, so there are a number of appendices to this particular paper, and there's a lot of content in this paper. I'm very aware that many people many members around this table have been involved in many of the stakeholder engagement groups which has taken this education training plan through its journey. So basically, the purpose of this report today is to present it to the ACQC the draft recommendations for including in the education and training plan for 25-26. So this has been the longevity of this is that you started at the beginning of the year, and we engage extensively, and effectively this describes the process that we've undertaken this year and the significant engagement with various partners in order to come to this conclusion. When I say it's draft, it is literally in draft, because we already, every day we have some feedback from some of our stakeholders, which we consider, and we will then be finalising this and then taking this to our board in August, the beginning of August, prior to submitting it to Welsh Government. What you'll see in that report as well is the recommendations in terms of 3 scenarios that we've had to undertake this year. And that was on the top of what we did last year. We produced as a plan last year, but then we were required by Welsh Government to go back and reconsider that. But actually I'm happy to take questions because I know actually that members who've had a lot of opportunity as well. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And we have had those opportunities, but irrespective of our time constraints, this is a very key document. It is really important that we have an opportunity to
work for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the opportunity to discuss it and have any questions today. So I'm going to open it out to questions now. They've probably all been answered in previous forums.
I'm told on all my colleagues actually, because I haven't got all the answers, but I'm sure that they will be there.
Yeah, I mean, just from my perspective, that a couple of things, and it talks about here about the flat cash investment, and you know the word catastrophic is in that paragraph. I don't know whether anything else you can
well, I think it's
iterate on that.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure Martin will come in on this. What we've got to consider is that we have got a pipeline for training, and therefore actually a pipeline of a workforce to train as well. And therefore, that was the request that we had last year, was actually to have that flat cash arrangement. And obviously, we worked with Welsh Government, and the outcome actually was the plan, which is currently in place. But the three scenarios that are described there is the flat cash, then actually the recommendation, but actually, just maintain the status quo. I think actually all of us actually have considered actually in order to do the flat cash, we will actually have a consequence and a big risk as we actually sort of, move further actually along the line. We know actually that the majority of our workforce takes at least 3 years to train. And obviously actually when it comes to medical and other professions, it's longer, up to 8 years as well. So we've actually got to take that into account. And what we don't want to do is store up problems further on down the line. Martin, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, only very quickly, and Chris Chair mentioned it earlier. The 3 years in training, for example, for nursing, physio for OTs, is not straight numbers every year. So the older cohorts are smaller numbers. So flat cash doesn't mean we can train the same, and that's the issue that we've got. If we want to train the same, it's going to cost more because we've got smaller cohorts dropping out and bigger cohorts coming through. So I think that's an important thing there. And the other thing as well is about sustainability of education, that if we have to drastically reduce the numbers, well, some of those courses may not become viable, and actually education providers may not be able to keep those on their books, because staff will be looking for other things. So it's about the sustainability of education through this as well. It's really, really important.
And to add to that as well is recognising what our workforce actually requests are as well. So therefore, yes, there were days actually when we trained actually one person and then come into the NHS and work full time. We know actually that actually looking at workforce trends, that doesn't seem to be the case. So therefore we have to commission more and actually train more at the outset in order to get probably more flexible working, which is what our workforce actually is requesting as well. So it is a challenge.
Thank you. Any other comments, thoughts for you to fit in? Judith?
Yeah, first of all, and this is my first time reading it, so I'm not sure I've absorbed everything, but I do understand what an incredibly comprehensive report it is. So, for somebody coming new to this, I just want to say, I'm very impressed with all the work that's gone on. So, I just want to say that. And it's a really tricky situation, and I understand as well the timescales that you were working to, and then you wait a long time when this is submitted to them, which is, to say it's not helpful is probably a real understatement. So I will hone in on something really, and it's to do with placements, because having worked the last 8 years in a health board, I know the pressure on being able to provide what everybody wants, which is an excellent experience for students so that they do want to stay. But the pressures on the service and the focus that sometimes comes that you have to put on a service makes it very hard to enable that. So I just wonder whether there are discussions, or you have looked at whether the model we're using for placements is right, for that we've probably run for quite a number of years. I mean, I've been in the NHS long enough to remember when we had a very different model, but I just wonder, because we want those people to come to Wales, have a great experience and stay, but the pressures on the service to do that is really tricky.
Yes, I can see Martin.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. If we have that conversation outside of it, that's fine. Because I know we're due to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do. And the two things I just wanted to mention is you're absolutely right, and crucial to this is our practice education facility, the network, and building that, so that we can actually maintain and improve the safety and quality of the placement experiences for the students. So I think that's really vital. You're right about an old traditional way of doing things. We commissioned and we've just issued 3 placement reports across diagnostic radiography, physiotherapy and occupational therapy, and they're coming up with some pretty innovative solutions to us to sort of we can increase the number of placements and modernise the way that they're done. We think about it as well.
Great. So I'll pick that up when I meet with Lisa.
And the other aspect is that obviously placement is something that's regulated, so therefore there's a requirement in terms of the standards and the quality of placement. But as well as that, what we are looking at is how we create that multi-professional arena. We work in a multi-professional way. So how can we create that infrastructure in that same way?
Thank you,
Margaret. I think it just might be really helpful very quickly to explain that we've had some, I mean pharmacy, but wider than pharmacy, having some really good conversations with health boards, particularly around how they set themselves up to be interprofessional, multi-professional learning. So they aren't looking things in silos. We've had one with Cardiff and Vale this week, and I know pharmacy's getting into that. How do we work more efficiently together rather than pharmacy having to find all the capacity, etc., etc. So the health boards are getting that message and they are on that agenda, which is really, really helpful.
It's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're asked to consider and provide feedback on the draft recommendations and the costings of these recommendations, and also to consider the implications for maintaining commission numbers and the contract numbers. And thank you, and again, thank you to you and all the teams that put together what, as Judith said, is very.
And it is a big team outside of this arena. Yeah.
So pass on our thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, I think it's back over to you again, isn't it? 3.2, highlight report, phase 2 of the strategic review.
So really, this is coming for your information. So this is a highlight report which is produced for this particular meeting, and therefore it's here for information.
So are there any specific questions from anyone with regard to that? You've got away quite easily there, Lisa. Okay, thank you. As you say, we are noting that report for information. So we moved into part 4, the governance matters, and we've got the committee annual report. David.
Yeah, just sorry on David. Felly, papur yn gofyn am gymeradwyaeth ydi hon. Dyma'r adroddiad blynyddol Pwyllgor ac yn crynhoi'r meysydd allweddol o waith a wnaethpwyd gan y Pwyllgor llynedd. Mae o hefyd wedi cael ystyried yn flaenorol gan y Pwyllgor yn ôl gynharach eleni. Mi oedd y papur hynny'n crynhoi gwaith Pwyllgor hyd at mis Rhagfyr. Mae'r papur hefyd yn amlellu'r blaenoriaethau Pwyllgor y Cymeradwyaeth sydd i ddod. Felly, da ni'n jyst yn gofyn i'r Pwyllgor i ystyried ac cymeradwyaeth o'r ysgol yma.
Any questions? David, got any comments? We need to rush through quite so quickly. We've gone quite. They're looking at the clock now, aren't they? So, okay. So on that basis, then we're asked to consider and approve the draft Education Commissioning and Quality Committee annual report, which I think we are doing. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, and again another bit of business for us: the annual review of committee terms of reference.
Yeah.
And over to you.
Felly, papur yw nodi a ystyried sgol yma. Felly, da ni'n gofyn i'r Pwyllgor i ystyried ac adolygu ei gylch gorchwil ei hun. Da ni'n neud hyn, wrth gwrs, yn blynyddol sydd yn adlewyrchu ymarfer da. Byddwch yn nodi yn bod ni'n cynnig 3 newid bach i'r gylch gorchwil eleni.
Mae'r gynta ymwneud gyda diwygio teitl, ein gyfrwys nyrsio, ac mae ddau arall yn ymwneud gyda ychwanegu aelodau hynny staff a ddylebyn presennol yn y Pwyllgor, sef y cyfarwyddwr optometric a ein cyfarwyddwr strategol newydd. Felly, da ni gofyn ysgolch mae'r Pwyllgor i adolygu ei golch gwyl ac i tuno ar y newidiadau fi newydd i amnellu'r ysgolch yma.
Are there any issues or comments with regard to that? I had a very tiny one. Oh, just a very quick one. It's in 3. It's the chief exec shall be invited to attend at least annually to discuss with the committee the process for assurance that supports the annual governance statement. I just wanted to check that would be that we've done that.
We do invite us to attend that, yes.
Yeah.
Although I think take on board the point around government statements to focus more on that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah. I had a very minor point, and it was in the cover paper. It said we last reviewed the terms of reference in July 2022, but I think they were reviewed last year.
So that's a type.
Yes, I thought it probably was, but just for completeness and accuracy.
Thank you.
No further comments, and then we are asked to review and agree the terms of reference. Thank you, David. 4.3, committee self-assessment and action plan.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Da ni'n gofyn i'r Pwyllgor i nodi ac ystyried y cynllun gweithredu sydd yn ffrwyth gwaith y Pwyllgor o ran ei hunan asesiad. Mae'r adroddiad yn edrych yn ôl ynghyd ac ymlaen, felly o ran edrych yn ôl mae'n cynnwys diweddariad ar ein cynllun gweithredu ar gyfer llynedd. Mae'n braf gallu adrodd cynnydd sylweddol yn ran y gwaith am wneud llynedd, ond mae yna 2 ardal sydd angen ffocysu parhaol. Yn gyntaf o ran ein adroddiad ar ansawdd, ein adroddiadau ar addysg ac hyfforddiant. Ac yn ail, mae yna dal iawn sylw o ran y ffurflen cwestiwn ar gyfer yr hunan asesiad. O ran edrych ymlaen ar gyfer eleni, byddwch chi'n gweld yn paragraff 2.2 fod yn cynnwys amlinelliad o'r cynllun gweithredu'r Pwyllgor ar gyfer y flwyddyn sydd i ddod. Felly, da ni'n gofyn os gwelwch yn dda i'r Pwyllgor i ystyried ac i nodi'r adroddiad os gwelwch yn dda.
Are there any comments regards this paper? And if not, then we'll note from the actions which arose from the previous self-assessment, and we'll note the action plan that you've outlined. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, which brings us to part 5, which is the education and training task and finish group. Sian.
Yeah, thank you. So this report is for governance purposes to come to you really as so you're cited. You will remember that during 23-24 we convened an overarching task and finish group to look at bringing people together to talk through the work, the considerable work that everyone was doing in the face of potentially lower fill rates across our different programmes. So the group had 2 purposes really: to be having that monthly flow of a conversation about action and reporting on fill rates against the education and training plan, but also working collectively to look at how we improve standards, improve data, improve availability of information. So actually what you've witnessed all the way through today's meeting is the output, I suppose, of that. And as we're talking, Craig is putting some screenshots on the screen to show now the level of detail that we're starting to get into So we have, for the first time, able to report on demographics. We're able to put on attrition rates, analysis on courses, on the breakdown of deprivation, where our students come from, how long they stay, what's those differences by university. Martin's already given a number of examples of how this is shaped and changing the conversations we're having with universities and education providers. I think it's been quite useful in your contract conversations. And then we are also working this through for pharmacy, for dental, and for medical specialties. So now we've got an analysis of our GP cohort, of where they come from, where they stay, and actually what that looks like. That's being QA'd, I think, now for pharmacy. Some really interesting stuff actually coming out of that. And then this is the screenshot of the application analysis that we've already discussed in the meeting. So in real time now, we are understanding where our applications are coming from, and informing our plans and decision making in much more real time. So for those of you that have been on the journey, I think you can see this is an iterative process, but it is starting to come a long way. So I'm chair the task and finish group, but absolutely a huge thank you to all of the individual teams who had information within the education training plan, because they were all really supportive and did attended and really helped the conversation. And a big thank you to the data team for supporting and getting those data standards and the dashboards in place. But it is an ongoing journey really of improvement. And now the task and finish group is just coming out with the other requirements around measurement. So it's an ongoing moving feast, but it is there, and it is supporting informed decision making now, which probably 2 years ago we weren't in this position.
Thank you, Shannon, and I think we all echo and thank the work that's gone on behind to get to where we are now. So it's exciting and interesting, and it's interesting because the comment I had put on my paper around this was, it talks about influencing the commissioning decisions and being able to help them shape the contract, and then we have the exact examples of that within the meeting, as if by magic. So that's great. Are there any other comments or questions for Sian with regard to this? Jill,
can I just make a comment, Chair? I mean, this is just fantastic. All I would say, from where we've come from to where we've got to, I mean, it's just unbelievable. So a really big well done to everybody that's contributed to this. And I'm just disappointed that Tina's not here. We'll send her back.
She wanted to know employer destination, didn't she?
Yeah.
We kept getting that request.
And that is part of our journey. So we're just waiting for some legal issues on our contract now, with HESA data to be able to link through students into the ESR database, and then show by linked data where they come out to students and where they end up then into their NHS profession, and being able to do that historically so we can see trends over time. I must take the opportunity to thank Craig for his amazing work and leadership in this piece, and the difference that you and the team have made is massive. So
thank you. Okay, on that basis, then we are asked to note for information the closure report of the task and finish group, and I think it is really important that we do minute and thanks with regard to that work that's been taken. It has made a difference. Thank you. So just leads me on to provide a little report on the stakeholder reference group, which I attended in May, and which our chair Chris chaired. So we had, as well as a sort of general sort of update from Julie Rogers with regard to our executive changes and the consultations around and our launches of both the primary care and strategic dental workforce plans. We had we noted that the IMTP had also been submitted as part of that, but we had 3 specific items, one of which was the education and training plan update, which Lisa gave, and obviously that kind of talked about our sort of revised plans for 24-25, and talked about the planning assumptions and all what we've been through, and how Lisa had been discussing our stakeholder involvement with regard to that, and talked about our factors of prioritisation for this forthcoming year. Obviously, as part of that, we had questions, and it's probably, as we reported at the last ECQC, again, concern was expressed by a couple of individuals with regard to the engagements that had taken place previously, and how disappointing they had felt that had been. However, our chairman reflected on what a difficult year it had been, and emphasised how we really did want to be good partners with regard to this, and it's encouraging to hear again the involvement that there has been, and I think it was just a reflection of what was a very difficult year. I think as well, it's probably useful to say that as part of, we were due, I think, to have a further meeting in September online, but I think there's been discussion about that going to a face-to-face meeting in October, which I think again will be very helpful in relation to building those relationships. It was a good opportunity for people to have their comments fed in about the education. We then had a super presentation on AI, which I'm sure everybody found really interesting, from Craig, and it was one of those areas that I think a lot of people recognise is going to have such an important role going forward, and there was discussion about how we kind of bridge the gap between those that understand AI and those perhaps that are needing to be brought along with it. And there was discussion about how we identify what the needs are for the sort of foundational level training, etc. And there was some sort of comments around what, specifically the impacts of AI will be on the workforce, and similarly also bringing along our the communication we have with the public, which was really interesting. So yeah, I learned a lot from that, and I'm sure others on the call did too. And the final big item was the cancer workforce presentation, which Dorothy Edwards gave. And again, that was talking about the priorities for the cancer workforce, and looking at the current and planned work that was being undertaken. And again, there was so much in that presentation, I couldn't possibly recount all of it, but there was the update on the academy endoscopy, multi-professional learning. There were issues on discussion about Gateway C, which I thought was a great to see that that's an online education for primary care specifically, and that there have been 500 courses already completed around that, which I thought was really interesting. And then it talked about Dorothy talked about the workforce implications for gynae, cancer, palliative and end of life frameworks, competency frameworks. So again, really excellent presentation from Dorothy as always. So those were the three key things. And then there was a plug again, because people asked about the workforce data, and there was an opportunity to share the link to the new data and analytics portal, which again I think was really welcome. So as I say, the next meeting is going to be face to face, I think, in October, and hopefully that will be an equally good session. So don't ask any more questions. As chair, I won't take any on that. Okay, so we did make up some time, so thank you for starting us off on the gallop, Margaret. That helped tremendously. So I will bring this meeting. I haven't been advised of any items of business, so I will bring this part of the meeting to a close to say that the next meeting is for Thursday, the 5th of September. And now I'll say, in accordance with the provision of Section 1(2) of the Public Bodies Act, Admissions to Meetings Act 1960, it shall be resolved that representatives of the press and other members of the public be excluded from the latter part of the meeting on the grounds that it would be prejudicial to the public interest due to the confidential nature of the business transacted. The section of the meeting to be held in private session. Thank you. Thank you for all your contributions.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.